So, I've pretty much made this video because I feel like there was a lot more that I felt like I needed to discuss involving my previous video. And again, I will be going towards some pretty sensitive topics like politics, so if you're sensitive to stuff like that, I recommend not watching this video. And before I go into my thoughts, my political views, and my overall my overall knowledge on how autism should be represented and why I feel like the Autism Society is constantly being messed with by those in power. There's something that everyone needs to know about me just to set the record straight. I love my country. I wouldn't imagine myself living anywhere but here. I especially want to believe in the fact that when you come to America, whether, whether you come to America, whether you're born here or what or whether you have parents who have immigrated here but you are still born here, regardless of your situation, you can come to America to live a safe, happy, and peaceful life. That you are entitled to every single God-given necessity that this world has to offer. Things like food, things like medicine, things like healthcare, things like water, fresh, clean water, things like education, things things like learning how to drive, getting a decent career that'll be able to help you pay for those things. And yet constantly I see a lot of damage being done to the autism community. And while perusing through Facebook, I feel like there's a lot of opinions that people have that I feel don't represent autism as a whole. And don't get me wrong, I know that there's going to be pe- there's going to be kids, teens, young adults, as well as adults around my age, as well as older adults that don't share the same spot on the spectrum as I do. But here's the thing, is the thing is success doesn't always have to mean that everyone should follow a similar path. Success for people is different. Just because someone's successful in one thing doesn't mean that they're going to end up being successful in another. And I feel like that's what people really need to understand. And unfortunately, people like that worm-brained idiot, Robert Frederick Kennedy Jr., he is spreading so many lies and he's spreading so much fear and anger about how people should view autism. It just really makes me feel disgusted, and it makes me feel, as an autism advocate, that we're not being represented to the fullest, that we're not being represented as a whole. And I feel that's an outrage, which is why I will continue to speak up for people with autism, because I care about people with autism, whether they're on a different part of the spectrum than me or not. I care about what happens to this country, especially considering the fact that Robert Frederick Kennedy Jr. is trying so hard to be able to double down on his efforts to be able to keep COVID vaccines out of out of the out out of access to the general public. Not to mention the fact that that he's blown that blown that he's blown smallpox way out of proportion, and the fact that he has gone so far as to say that no one should take medical advice from him, but still hold a high position in the government that requires him to learn medical medical knowledge. That just really goes to show where we're at in this country. And that really goes to show that unless something is done, unless people's health, unless giving support to people with autism is taken seriously, instead of wishing on a cure, hoping that it'll help people with autism, instead of putting their health at risk, just to just so they can live like normal people. And I know the thing. I know that people are gonna be all over this video saying, saying, Greg, autism should be cured. We shouldn't have people with autism living the way they are. They deserve to live a normal life. But as I've said before, success doesn't have to be the same for one person as it is for another. Success is different for everyone. And the more you're putting that person's health at risk, the more opportunities you're taking away from that person to be able to help them develop through their autism. After all, I've had that same fear too. Don't think that I haven't had that fear looking back on my past. And I'm pretty sure my parents had that same fear too. But I feel like if I don't say stuff like this, if I don't advocate for autism the way that I am doing, then we're never going to find improvement for being able to give support to people with autism. I mean, after all, there's people with autism everywhere, everywhere. There's like 136 people diagnosed with autism, and you probably won't even know because the thing is, we're really good at masking our autism. Especially I myself, being behind a camera and being at the Newport Aquarium, I'm good at masking my autism because I know that people will never understand my how my autism affects me and how I'm trying very hard to be able to understand it and trying to make sure others understand. And I know that there are going to be people who will never take what I say seriously. But the thing is, even if there's just a few people that can get something from my videos, even if there is a chance that it can be able to turn things around for people with autism, if it can be able to get them more success in life, because let's be honest here. How many people do you know that are on the autism spectrum that have had like really high paying jobs, like people with autism who are managers at businesses, people who are on the autism spectrum who are lawyers, are people who are pretty much medical professionals. And even though the good doctor talks about talks pretty well the about how autism works and about the struggles with trying to maintain a very complex job like a like the like the medical health industry while balancing an autistic life. There's actually not very many people on the autism spectrum who have those types of jobs. And it's not because I don't believe that they can, it's because those in power, those who make the rules, don't believe that they can. And that's my job as an autism advocate, to be able to remind them that people with autism are more talented than they give them credit for. Sure, not everyone on the autism spectrum does things like being able to play baseball, use the bathroom independently, driving a car independently. But there are a lot of people on the autism spectrum that are able to do these things, including myself. I've played baseball for years. I can definitely use the bathroom independently. I can definitely drive a car. I have gone on dates. I have a job of my own that I've had for almost 2 years now. I also have my small business that I'm completely working to build up into something that I can be able to have as something that I can use to even pay taxes. Because that's part, even though nobody likes taxes, even though nobody likes taxes, I still want that to be, want to understand taxes and want to be able to do what I can to pay taxes with my small business. But all that needs to start with people who are educated, people who know how taxes work and know how to educate others, instead of people like Robert Frederick Kennedy Jr., who have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And here's the biggest catch with that is that this whole thing didn't start with him. No, he's just part of the problem with how people look at people with autism in general, or rather, how people in the country look at people with autism. No, all of that really starts not, and it's not just with Donald Trump, because even though I absolutely detest the guy, I feel like taking down Medicare, taking away taking away funding from nonprofit organizations and colleges is a very slimy thing to do. And not to mention the fact that he's taking away immigrants from their homes without due process. Believe me, I understand. Believe me, I do not like any of the things President Trump does, and I do not like the fact that his supporters are cheering for this, even though they have no idea that the stuff he does, including getting rid of DEI in the workplace, which is going to cost so much unemployment in the workplace. Still feel like Donald Trump is not responsible for this either. No, it's people who abuse their power to gain profit. Some of which, like the GOP, some of which, like the far right media, like with Fox News. People who are just pulling the strings to be able to have those in power that they can manipulate. They can manipulate like puppets, be able to call the shots so that intelligent people like me and intelligent people who absolutely know what they're doing involving autism, as well as being able to figure out how to give people affordable health care and give kids access to free breakfasts and lunches at schools and give them a good education. On top of those on top of those things, I feel like as an American, we are entitled to being able to live our lives as successful and as happily and as free as possible, because that is what the founding fathers have put on the Declaration of Independence. That is what they put on the Constitution. That is what they put on the Bill of Rights. That is not a radical thing. That is something that every American should at least know by heart. And the fact that people are okay with stuff like this, that people are even also okay with attacking people from the church like Bishop Buddy, those people are the most anti-American, most anti-Christian, the most anti-Jesus people that are walking this country. And I do not care, and I do not care if they end up targeting me for this. I will stand my ground on this, and I will fight for what I know is right. Not to mention, I will also fight for every single person with autism, because they deserve a chance at success too. As, as well as immigrants, as well as people who are born in this country, for people who are poor and have absolutely no income to draw while people like the GOP, like people from Doge, who are taking away Social Security and taking away people's income while they are trying to struggle to keep it for themselves. I am not a bad man. I know that for a fact. Everything I do for the good of this country. I do for the good of my community. The fact that people like Robert Frederick Kennedy Jr. are allowed to get away with this because some scumbags let him be able to do stuff like this, it appalls me. Especially as someone who wants to see good actually happen to this country. And the thing is, good hasn't happened to this country in a long time. Especially considering how, as people like Robert Frederick Kennedy Jr., people like Donald Trump, people like J.D. Vance, people like a grand majority of the GOP are threatening to be able to destroy everything that we stand for as Americans just to line their pockets. And as an autism advocate, as someone who actually wants to have money just be completely separated from politics, and to have religion to be separated from politics, that is something that I really want in this country, to make sure that the politics in this country aren't reliant on being religious to be able to be used as an excuse to be able to justify their wrongdoings, or money to be able to fuel their wrongdoings. We need people who are willing to serve us, the citizens of the country, instead of those in power. But anyway, that's pretty much all for my entire rant. I'm sorry that I got really deep in the politics, and I know that's going to have a lot of consequences, but I feel like that this is something I should talk about, and I feel like, as someone who's very concerned, as someone who wants to stand up for his own rights, I feel like I need to say this. I feel like, as someone on the autism spectrum, I want something done. I want something good to actually be done instead of having more violence, more poverty, and more divisiveness in our country. Please, if anyone's watching this who actually cares for our country, please take into consideration that we want what's best for everyone, not just for a certain group of people, for everyone. Thank you. I'll see you in my next video.